Okay, so today we're talking about RTI in the science classroom. I'm going to introduce myself. I'm going to try and go quickly. That way you have time to practice and play around with CK-12 a little bit, or use your time however you may see fit. But this is kind of a culmination of everything I went through last year. It was only my first year of using it in class. I thought it was really effective. So I wanted to share, and then I'll try again this year and reevaluate. So a little bit about me. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Kim Broyles. I teach at South Middle. I teach 8th grade science. I got my master's in instructional technology from Mizzou back in 2015. This is my 11th, I'm starting my 11th year of teaching. I have taught 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. This will be my 4th year at South Middle, and then I taught for 7 years in a district down in Herculaneum, Missouri. And then last summer, knowing that we were going to have a lot more instruction virtually and through the computer, I really started to look at all kinds of different resources to use with my students. And I had heard of CK-12, and I knew about some of the stuff, but I found out they had a certified educator program, and I was like, well, I'll go through it and just see what I learned. And I learned a whole lot, and I became very passionate about it. So just real quick in the chat, if you wouldn't mind, if you could give me a number, 1, 2, or 3. 1, I don't know what CK-12 is at all. 2, I know it. I use it every now and again, but not very frequently. Or a 3, I use it a lot for all kinds of things, just so I get kind of a feel of where we're at. Because some of you may even know more than I do. Mostly 1s and 2s, so this will be good. Kind of my layout for the day is going to be just a general CK-12 overview for those of you who may not be as familiar with it or not know all of the things that they offer. The best part of it being that it's all free. And then I'm going to give you what my classroom experience was, the feedback from my students last year, and then how I actually set everything up in Canvas. And then you're going to have some time to practice. So like I said, I just want to kind of go through some of the stuff that CK-12 offers. That way you have those options. So the big thing that they offer is their Flexbooks 2.0 learning platform. This is the main thing that you would probably use if you're utilizing CK-12, but there's lots of other stuff too. The nice thing about the 2.0 learning platform is that it's intelligent, it's interactive learning. So instead of just reading a textbook and looking at pictures, there's actually videos for them to watch and simulations integrated into it. So that way they can use those modalities that help them learn a bit better. Every section of Flexbook 2.0 has an adaptive practice, which we'll get into a little bit more later. There are interactives and simulations. So for those of us who use Gizmos, I think Gizmos is probably a little bit better in terms of the simulations, but that also costs money. I think the CK-12 simulations are really pretty good. They just don't always come with like the docs and questions, so you may have to develop a little bit there. You can create classes and assignments. You won't be creating classes. It does integrate with Canvas, so you'll just use those classes, but you can assign assignments through Canvas as well. It gives you insights on student performance. And like I said, it integrates in Canvas. There's lots of professional development that they offer as well. So if you haven't already, please go in a different tab to CK-12. That way you're there with some of the other things that we're going to be doing. And once you're good to go, just give me a okay or a hey ya or something so I'm not moving too fast. again, if you could go to ck12.org. If you're creating an account, that's fine. It might take a few minutes longer, but once you're ready, go ahead and shoot me some kind of message. That way I know we're good to go. Okay, looks like most of us are ready to go. If you're still signing up, that's fine. But I'll go ahead and move on in the interest of time. So like I said, the big thing that you're probably going to utilize more often than not is the Flexbooks. The nice thing about the Flexbooks is each lesson enables a student's personalized journey. If you just wanted to give them something to read, or if you want to assign a certain section, there's the student tutor and the teacher assistant. Each lesson has adaptive practice and other alternative ways for them to practice with the content besides just reading through the text. And that's what that additional curated modalities is. What you probably would do is start with the CK-12 already made Flexbook, and then you can edit it from there. So last year I started with the middle school physical science Flexbook, and then I was able to take that and delete the sections I didn't want, add in sections that I needed that weren't there, and then rearrange the book to actually match the progression of my units. And that was super, super helpful because it really aligned with our content and our curriculum versus a normal textbook. You get what you get. And the other nice thing about the sections within the Flexbook is you can actually edit them to add other content or to take out pieces of content that aren't appropriate for the level that you're teaching, which I also did as well. So yeah, there's all that. You could also download it as a PDF if you wanted a paper copy of it, maybe for your students who don't like reading off of a screen. I totally understand that. But then you lose a lot of that, interactive part of the Flexbook. So there are 3 middle school NGSS aligned textbooks pre-made. So there's the earth science, the life science, and the physical science. And then for the high school, they have biology, chemistry, and physics. So I think everyone who's in here, you have something that actually is directly tied to what you teach. So what I want you to do is I hyperlinked all of these pictures to take you to that Flexbook. So if you could just find the one that you'd like to play with today and then click on that and go to it, that would be fabulous. And Marcia, yes, CK-12 links to Canvas. And I'm hoping that over the summer, they got some of the small issues worked out. There were a few linking issues that I was totally able to work around, but it was kind of a pain. But it does integrate to Canvas. I'm going to go ahead and assume everyone has clicked on their Flexbook and is looking at a screen like the high school biology one. Sorry, this is so annoying. Like this one. I'm actually going to, here I am at CK-12, so I'm going to close this. Oh, stop. I'm going to open my physical science one for middle school. Okay. So my favorite thing about CK-12 is it's very concept-based. So each section really focuses on one concept, whereas in a traditional textbook, you may have 2 or 3 concepts in one section. The Flexbooks are definitely like, here is one section about acceleration. Here is one section about velocity. Here is one section about, I don't know, anything else you can think of. So I really, really like that. So what I would like you to do now is pick a concept. So if you're looking at CK-12, back up here, click on the right thing. Did I link to the wrong place? I probably did. Oh, no, perfect. So if you scroll down, you can actually see all of the different sections. And again, like I know in middle school, we don't really talk a lot about solutions, acids, and bases. So that's something I took out of mine. Or you can, and then here's where you actually assign it. So if you drop down like here for matter and change, if I use the drop down, I can see all the different sections. So here's one just about matter, mass, and volume. Here's one about physical properties, one about density. So it's very, very small concept sections. So just kind of look around and see what you got. Once you have looked around, pick one section and go to it. So like if I want to look at what a compound is, I'm going to go to the compound section. And then I'm going to press, it's going to show you the section and its description, and then it's also going to show you other ways to learn. So those different modalities. For the actual Flexbook, you'll click Start, and it will take you to the section. So if everyone could just get to one section that you know would apply to your curriculum, that would be fabulous. Oh, I feel like it's definitely way more up to date than Discovery Ed. You probably all feel the same way about Discovery Ed that I do. CK-12 is free and in my opinion, much better. So I definitely prefer it. So let's take a look at the adaptive practice. This is a huge part of my Rti model. So I wanted to let you see it before I tell you to start using it. So in the adaptive practice, there's one for each section. So again, it's very concept-based questions about exactly what you want them to be looking at. It's a huge question bank. There are hints enabled. So if a kid is really struggling, it'll be like, hey, you should probably go back and read this specific paragraph, which they may listen to, they may not because they're children. You have to get 10 correct to move on to a new concept or to turn the assignment in. So the kids can't just, they could just click, 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 click until they get 10 questions right. But the dashboard's actually going to show you where they fall on like they're proficient versus not proficient. So it's pretty easy to tell if they've just clicked through to get their 10 versus if they are actually trying. Let's see what else. It offers content if they're still struggling. And again, we can assign specific concepts and then you get detailed reports that look like this. So when you give an adaptive practice like here, it'll show you that the kid finished it with a 100%. However, it'll be green if it is proficient, and it will be yellow if they didn't do very well. So you'll actually be able to see that stuff as well. Again, so you know if they're clicking through. Every section that is, Marcia, every section that's a Flexbook 2.0 section does have an adaptive practice. So it's nice because you don't have to make the stuff up. So whatever section you're on, I would like you to go ahead and just click on or at least look at the questions in the adaptive practice. And I will say some of them are a little more high level, and that's okay. It's kind of built that way to extend those kids. So if you're in an adaptive practice, it'll give you a thing. So which is formed when two elements combine? Oh no, it's an electron. Oh no, let's check it. Oh no, I'm wrong? And it'll tell the kids. So like over here, it's like, here, remind me, here's what you need to know. A compound is a substance, blah, 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 blah. So it does give them feedback as they're going through the adaptive practice. And then you click try again, and then you can click the right one. Yay, I got one right. And it'll continue to go through all these questions again that are pre-made. You don't have to make it, and it'll give the kids feedback on how well they know that concept. So just kind of click through for a minute, and then we'll move on to my classroom experience. And again, if you have any questions, throw them in the chat. Oh, how I access the practice? Yeah. So let me close that. So when you're in the section, down here in the right corner, you should see a green button that says View Practice. And if you don't see one, try a different section. When you click View Practice, this should pop up, and then click Preview, and then this would let you download it as a worksheet or customize it. Like if you want specific questions, you can customize it, but then it's more like a quiz instead of adaptive. So once you click Preview, it'll show you, and it saves where the kids are so they could do a little bit and then come back to it. Marsha, were you able to find it? Also, if you click over here on the table of contents, that can take you to your different reading sections. So if I wanted to look at gas, I could. And View Practice, Preview. Here, let me send you a link to where I am. And then you can play with it there. Okay. So while you're playing, I'll go ahead and talk about my classroom experience and kind of my classroom philosophy. And if your philosophy is different from mine, that's totally okay. You can still manipulate this to however your classroom runs. But I think it's important to kind of know where I stand and where my philosophy is, and that's why I develop things the way I did. Okay. So with the focus on the disciplinary core ideas and NGSS, I really wanted to move towards a standards-based grading system, which in a middle school and high school is, as a whole, not entirely feasible. Like in the elementary, parents are a little more into it, but at the secondary level, they really just want the A, the B, the C. So in order to make it more standards-like, they have to show their knowledge and their mastery and not just effort. So one of the ways I do that is by weighting my grades, which I think most of us do, and a huge portion of it being in the assessment category. And then another portion in like labs and projects, so kind of those performance expectations, and then just a small amount for homework and classwork. All those random worksheets we do for practice. I don't care. If you do them, you learn the skill. If you don't, you're not going to learn it, and it's going to show up somewhere else. I wanted to give students more feedback on their learning and mastery without that gotcha feeling. So I wanted the kids to be able to assess where they're at, because if you ask them to just be like, hey, how do you think you're doing? They're all going to say, I totally get it. And then they take their quiz and they vomit and they're like, maybe I didn't get it, but then we move on and they still don't get it. So I wanted them to have that check-in without a bombed quiz totally ruining their grade, especially since a huge chunk of it is based on assessments. And then some kids just take a little bit longer, and I always felt that guilt of, oh, well, you didn't learn it by the arbitrary date I set. Sorry, I didn't really like that. Another thing I wanted to decrease was testing and quiz anxiety. I don't know if your kids are like mine, I'm sure they are, but they all have horrible test and quiz anxiety. They will talk with me in class and they'll know everything, and then they get to a quiz and they just blank when they actually know it. So knowing that they kind of have this safety net that I've developed, it's really reduced their quiz and test anxiety. And then the other thing is we don't have a ton of time. I have 2 kids at home. I don't want to spend a ton of time at home setting things up and getting things prepped. So I wanted something that was going to give me the solution I wanted, even if it's not entirely perfect, without putting a ton of extra work on me. So what does this actually look like in my classroom? I give weekly quizzes that are very short and very concept-based. When I'm looking at the other 2 dimensions of NGSS, that's when I'm doing my projects and my labs. My quizzes are me looking at the DCIs, the actual disciplinary core ideas. These quizzes are somewhere between 6 and 12 questions long. It just depends on the concept. But I give them every week on Fridays. The kids know when they are, and they know that they're coming. And so they know if I'm not paying attention through the week, it's going to show on Friday. And just knowing that it's a consistent quizzing system already reduces a ton of the anxiety, because it's not, oh, when do I have a quiz? Oh, I have to cram. I know I have a quiz every Friday. After the quiz, I create a quiz retake module in Canvas. I make this available to all students, regardless of their original quiz score. I let them work on the quiz retake and the module inside or outside of class. And if you're not comfortable with that, you can take time in class. I didn't want to take that time. It can be tedious to copy to other courses if you're not cross-listed, but it is what it is. Usually my modules consist of 2 or more reteaching assignments and then 1 quiz retake. I don't require the kids to do the reteaching assignments, but I do encourage them, because I tell them if you didn't know it the first time you took the quiz, you're not going to know it just by taking another version of it. As an incentive, anyone who at least completes the reteaching assignments, I'll bump their quiz grade up to a 75%, purely because if they're doing all those assignments, they're getting more exposure to the material. And then if they take the quiz retake, they can earn up to a 100%. So even if they failed on Friday, when they do the quiz retake, they can end up with a 100% still. And a lot of my higher students really liked this, because they get a B and they'd be like, well, I really want the 100%. And then they take the time on their own to learn the material even more and work with it more, just to raise their grade to that 100%. And that's a win-win in my book. They're interacting with the material. That's all I want. And then I set it up to where they can attempt the quiz retake twice. And they have to have a set minimum of time between attempts, which you can set up through Canvas. And, oh my God, CK-12. Because we all know that kid who's going to just blow through their 2 attempts and then it's useless. So I set it up to where the module's due by the next Friday. So they have until the next quiz, and then I lock it. So if they chose not to take advantage of the quiz retake, that's on them. Oh, also, for those of you who aren't familiar with the RTI model, I threw it here. There are 3 tiers to the RTI model. Tier 1 is just what we do for everybody. This one I'm talking about is the tier 2. So it's targeted intervention for a small population of students who need it, but you are still going to have your tier 3 kids who just don't get it, and you're going to have to come up with something else there. So this is tier 2, not tier 3. It's not going to be the end all be all for every kid, but it is going to get that 5 to 15% who just needed that little bit of extra. So alternate ideas, you can require the reteaching assignments. You could set up your module where they can't even see the quiz retake until they do the reteaching module, but that's up to you. You could require the quiz retake attempts to only be done in class, or you could set it up to where they can only be done during school hours. You can increase or decrease the amount of quiz retake attempts. You got to get it to fit to your level of expectation for the kids. Or you could even say you only get to retake the quiz and only earn up to this much, but I don't love that, but you do you. So student feedback. First thing I did was ask the kids how often they took advantage of quiz retakes. Most of them said only when they needed to. So I didn't have kids doing this every single time. If they got, a lot of them, if they got a B or higher, they were happy and didn't want to put in the work to try and raise their grade. But I did have a good chunk of kids who said they took advantage of it, but they didn't even need to. They just wanted to raise that grade up and learn more. I have a small section. This is that again, that 5%, those tier 3 kids who needed to take advantage of it often because they needed to. Of course, there's that pesky 10% of kids who should have taken advantage of it, but they didn't. Can lead a horse to water. But, and then I had a chunk of kids, these are your high flyers who just, they do good every time. So they just didn't take advantage of it. I had 82 of my kids respond. 86% of them said that I should keep using the quiz retakes, and 78% said that they liked the weekly quizzes because they knew when they were coming and they could check on their own learning. Here's just some other stats. The big thing that I wanted to point out was the test and quiz anxiety. 62 of the kids out of the 82 said that it reduced their test and quiz anxiety. And that was huge for me. Knowing that they had this quiz retake to fall back on, I think made them a lot more comfortable with the idea of, I may not know it now, but I'm gonna. So that was nice. So you can look at those in your own time. So now let's actually get to the Canvas setup. This is what a typical quiz retake module looked like for me. So I have my 3 reteaching assignments here, and then I have the quiz retake. And I just told it the concept of the quiz retake module. Nothing fancy. Oh, good, Marsha, I'm so glad. So the reteaching assignments, a lot of times I'll use the CK-12 adaptive practice just because it does expose them to the content over and over and over again. And it does force them to get 10 questions right in order to complete the assignment. They can complete it on their own, and it grades for me. I love anything that I don't have to grade. However, sometimes I will use the interactive. Sometimes I'll use a quizzes game or a Kahoot game, or I'll give an extra worksheet. It just kind of depends on the material and what that quiz was about that week. For the quiz retakes, I prefer the CK-12 quizzes because they have a huge quiz bank and I don't have to come up with the questions or anything like that. I can manipulate how many questions they see. I can pick and choose which ones to use because a lot of the CK-12 questions are high level, but you can take those out and set all that stuff. The number of attempts, you can limit the time. I have used Canvas quizzes. I don't love them because then I have to actually type in all the questions or import things into the question bank, and CK-12 just has it all for me. So how do you actually create these quizzes? So to create a quiz, you are going to go to the library tab on CK-12. So let me close out of here. Stop. Okay. So I'll go back to CK-12. And you're going to click on library. And that's going to bring up your library. And here you can see I've created a ton of quiz retakes, all very specific. To create a new quiz, you're going to click on Create New. And then you're going to go down to Quiz. That's going to take you to this screen. And I'm not going to go through the rest of those slides that talk you through it, but it's screenshots if you want it for later. I know I keep pointing to my computer like you guys can see it. So you'll title your quiz. You could say, I don't know. Here's where you can set the number of attempts. So I usually do 2. I don't usually put a time limit, but if you wanted to, you could, you know, give them a 20-minute time limit so they're not just fooling around. I usually turn off show hints since it is a quiz retake, and I usually shuffle the questions. The part that's nice is this add question set. So when you click add question set, you get to choose a concept. We all teach science, so I'm going to go there. Here's where the test banks are for all of your stuff. So since I teach physical science, I usually click the physical science dropdown. You could also create new questions, but I don't have time for that. So then it brings up all those concepts that are in that Flexbook. So I can go to matter and change. And let's say I'm looking at state changes. I click that. And here I have changes of state, freezing, melting, boiling, evaporation, condensation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I can select which, excuse me, concepts I maybe want to pull from. I wouldn't suggest this many, but I can pick the concepts I want to pull from and click select. It's going to auto default to 20 questions. You don't have to pick 20 questions. You can change it to just 10 if you wanted. I usually make them a bit longer so that way the kids don't just do poorly on my quiz to try and do the retake. I usually make these about 20 questions. But you can change the number and it will automatically randomly select 10 questions from that set. However, I usually like to choose them. So I'll go to the edit button here. Sometimes it's slow. Here's why I actually see the question. I like to change the type and sort them that way. So then I can look at all the multiple choice and it ranks them on whether they're easy or not. It tells you who made it. So like all these ones were made by CK-12, but these were made by contributors. And you can click the drop down arrow to see what the actual question is. And if you like it, keep it checked. If you don't, uncheck it. The short answers, they're iffy. They're very particular. If you spell something wrong, so solid, so say you forget the I, it's going to count it wrong. So I don't love the short answer, but you could use them. True, false is good. And then they also have some fill in the blanks and other question types. So you'll pick your questions, you'll unselect the ones you don't want, and you'll click save. Sometimes it takes a minute. And it'll bring you back here. So now you have your quiz. You can add more question sets if you want, but once you have all of your questions, click update, make sure everything's good to go. If you set a time limit, it takes away this pause and resume. So they'd have to sit down and finish it one thing, but if you don't care, you can allow them to pause and resume. So how do you actually assign it through to Canvas? You don't do it through CK-12. So let me open up my Canvas. Sure, we'll go here. So you can create your assignment. And then you can use an external tool. You'll go down to CK-12. And then you'll go to library. And you don't check it. You have to actually click on the quiz itself. Sorry, it's being really slow. And then you'll click create assignment here. And now it's assigned to your kids. I will say it works better if you have these load in a new tab. For some reason, if you try and open it right there, it glitches out a lot. So I would definitely click load in a new tab. And then you can do all of this stuff however you choose. Save and publish. To their quiz. For you, it will take you to the responses, so the class reports. I don't because it's through Canvas, I don't think they have to set up accounts. I don't remember though, Marcia. But not once you have kids who have taken the quiz and you've assigned it to an actual class with kids, it'll show their names, all the reports there. But like here's one I think I used in my example of a quiz retake. I had 26 questions in there. Like, I don't want to make it easy for the kids because then they won't try on the first one. But I don't want to make it overly difficult. So you just kind of have to play around with it and find what you like. Does anyone have any questions for me? Otherwise, these last 20 minutes, you can just play around, maybe try and make one, see how you like it. It saved me a lot of time. And then the last couple slides after all of that is just, you can learn more about CK-12. You can become a certified educator. I would suggest it. It's all self-paced, super quick and easy, and just walks you through all of the different stuff on their platform. This is what they see. You're welcome. I mean, you guys, I'm okay, I guess, if you sign up. If you have any questions, please let me know. Thanks, guys. I want to make everyone's life easier. Thank you. You guys too. Stay strong, stay safe. Oh, that makes me so happy, Letitia. I hate PDs that don't actually feel applicable. And I'll be on this whole time, so if you want to play around and then have me here if you need to troubleshoot something, that's fine too. I will mute myself though, so you don't have to listen to me sniff.